Good afternoon, State Senate Institutions back live again. We have Vermont Fairs and Field Days folks in here today. They're going to talk about their section on the Capitol bill, and it is section 5, line 68. And looks like you're asking for $300,000 this biennium and $300,000 next biennium. So, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Senator. So for the record, my name is Jackie Folsom. I am the lobbyist for the Vermont Fairs and Field Days, and I'm going to turn it over to several fairs that are going to be represented here today to talk to you about how they've leveraged their portion of the grants on different things that they've done on their fairs. There are 14 fairs that we have in our association. All but 2 fairs own their own property. That would be Franklin and Deerfield. So these folks have been making improvements with your grant money over many, many years. And we've actually asked the fairs to not look at single-year plans, but we've asked them to go into 4- and 5-year plans so that they're always moving ahead and thinking what they can do and trying to leverage the money as they go forward. So we're going to start off. I've got Robert Condon from Vermont State Fair, Chris Vance from Caledonia County Fair, Tim Shea from Champlain Valley Fair, and also Jeff Bartley is here from Champlain Valley. I've got Nancy Howe and Peggy Sherlock from Tunbridge and Jason Sicard from Orleans. So I'll let them get in the hot seat. Robert, why don't we start with you?
Okay.
And we'll go around the room. Thank you.
So for the record, my name is Robert Condon. I am the president of the Vermont State Fair in Rutland, Vermont. And thank you, first off, for your time. Thank you for allowing us to come in to speak to this. And the theme that you're going to hear today is just how key and how beneficial these funds are to our operations, and to thank you for that. In our particular case, it's no secret that we have come back from some pretty dark times in Rutland. And the reality is that years ago, before I became involved, it's a miracle that we weren't bankrupt. But in the midst of now where we are, we're back on firm footing, which is exciting. But the capital funds particularly have been key for us to rebuild infrastructure. There was a massive amount that Brian can testify to as well that needed to be addressed, that had been let go for a number of years for various reasons. Lots of different things that happened, and there was just a sheer large amount of infrastructure that needed addressed. So in the most recent, we have totally rebuilt our first aid station on the fairgrounds, which is a historical building that dates to the turn of the century. We got that repaired. We've put in restroom facilities that were much needed in different places, which also cut down on our operating costs because it allowed us to rent less porta potties for around the fairgrounds. We have currently 2 years of capital grants that are going to go into replacing the roof on the Industrial Vermont building, which is one of our largest exhibit halls on the facility. And also we just were approved this year, which they're about to come out, for some funds that will be put into our 4-H building, as well as a water system upgrade for our agricultural side. So again, all of these things were key to what we needed to accomplish, but also keeping us going. As Jackie mentioned, we are one of the ones that were, looking 5 years out theoretically, trying to take it and, the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. What's the next piece we should take on? And try to develop those plans so that we are leveraging the monies as beneficially as possible. How can we get the biggest bang? And one of the things that each one of the people you're going to hear from today are going to talk about, this allows us to have the seeds to be able to really, the projects don't cost $30,000. The projects are more like probably $50,000 or $60,000, but it allows us to have that starting capital that we can then maybe go to businesses, get them involved, go to other places. And the economic impact is huge as well because we're keeping that money local. We're not hiring big out-of-state firms to come in and do this work. We're hiring local contractors. We're hiring people that money's being funneled right back into our local economies, which is something that I think is really beneficial for this program as well. So thank you, and I certainly can take any questions that you might have.
I know I've done a fair at Champlain Valley for a long time, but I've always wondered about Rutland. I'm glad to see it's coming back because I couldn't understand for years. It was just going downhill, downhill, downhill. It's a Vermont State Fair, and yet they just weren't grabbing a hold of it. And so I'm glad to hear that you're making progress, and it's a great location and everything, but it was just failing and failing and failing, and I couldn't understand why, but the location it was at. But thank God you're taking over, I guess. It made a difference. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go on the record as saying Robert's done a great job. One of the criticisms, if it's a criticism, we used to hear locally, well, they use that, 7, 9 days a year, and it just sits there idle most of the time, and he's done a great job filling dates up and getting it
That's what
used.
it's all about. Yeah.
So,
You can't survive on just buying some bait.
no, I think he's done a wonderful job, and,
So we're gonna hear from everybody, and I don't want to steal thunder just on one, but maybe somewhere along the way, whether it's you, Robert, or somebody, the next person, or the next person, or the next person. What's the process of, you get $300,000 this year, and how do you guys decide on how that happens? Who splits it up? How does that go? So,
Jackie, for a second.
go ahead, Jackie.
Sure, for the record, Jackie Folsom. So there is a capital grants committee, and it's comprised of one representative, one senator. Senator Maz is on it. Representative John O'Brien was just put on it this year. It used to be Carolyn Partridge. And one person from tourism, one person, I believe, from parks, Forest Parks, 2 people from the fair board. So it's Tim and Diane Norris. And I sit on it just as a reference. And then there's 2 people from the Agency of Agriculture. So there's over the years, they developed a very, well, I don't have to fill it out, so I'll say that it's slick. It's a computerized form, and they fill that out with information that asks for the amount of money that they've spent on certain things, on how many attendants that they've had, and so on and so forth. Yep. And so
Matching dollars.
and they have to have 50% matching.
Yeah.
To whatever they're asking for. So we go through and determine how it's going to get parsed out. This year, it just happened that there were 10 fairs that asked for money. So the grant committee just divided it out by, and everybody's going to get around $30,000. And we have had, there is one fair that their money is in, not escrow, but it's being held. Franklin County Fair is having challenges with their space. And so they want to use that money for purchasing property up in Franklin County. And right now we're holding 2 years worth of that to see if they can actually come up with a space. So that's going to be a challenge for them. And we're working our way through several committees to try to make that happen. So that's how it's doled out. There is an application form. It's due December 15th. The grant committee meets like the first or second week in January. And then the grants, they're a little behind over at the agency. So the announcement should be coming out this week or next. And they will get the information that will include how to apply for the stipend and the capital funds. So it's a very precise process.
I can tell you some of these small fairs will not survive without that, because they don't generate that kind of revenue. It's been, I'll tell you, it's eye-opening to see how they've all survived because of this little grant that comes along. Very, very beneficial.
Yes.
Well, one quick question. Thank you all very much for your work. Are all of the fair organizations private nonprofits?
I think most of us are associations that are nonprofit
So
organizations.
they're not any
I don't think
towns
they know
or
what a profit
counties?
is.
Yeah, they're really. They're
Not
nonprofit.
always on purpose, are they nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
I can say from experience, I haven't seen one that said, wow, I made a lot of money last year. It's more of a community thing, and it's great.
Yeah, oh, no, they're
People look
wonderful.
forward to it. And,
I believe they are nonprofit.
But they're not towns or anything. They're not
Right.
municipality, they're separate.
Yeah.
and-
So for us, we're a 200-member organization that's a nonprofit that
Okay.
comes together to put it on.
That's great.
These go back to the old, and I think Tunbridge is the Tunbridge Agricultural Society. These were years ago. I think CVE has the same stock system where people paid $1 or $5 to join, and it was kind of the seed money to get the organization started. So there's stock floating around in some of them and membership in others.
Thank you.
Well, next,
Thank you.
Chris,
yes, thank you very much,
you
Robert.
can go first this time.
I know, I like going first. Chris Vance with Caledonia County Fair. Pass around some pictures if you'd like to see. It just shows you the last 3 years' projects, and you can see the monies that were spent above and beyond the 30,000. I had the luxury of working with Dick Lawrence for the last 16 years.
Sorry for that.
So I can tell you that, Dick was, used the support of the legislature very well over the years to transform the Caledonia County Fairgrounds to what it is today. As Dick, Senator Mazza mentioned, it's all about community, and especially in small rural areas. The county fair is critically important, and it's one of those things that, you're either growing or you're dying, and a lot needs to be put in to make a special place for people to go. We've concentrated the last 3 years. This year will be our last year at finishing all of our cattle barns.
Yep.
So all 5 barns have now been completed, and it did give us the luxury of pulling the New England Holstein show out of New Hampshire. So that for the first time will come to Caledonia this summer, and we hope that happens. Again, the stipend and the grants, have always just been one of those things that have allowed us to do some of the things that we've done and all the improvements that we've made. And again, it's a labor of love, as those that are involved in fairs understand, and it wouldn't be possible without your support. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it very much.
Hi, I'm Peggy Sherlock with Tunbridge Fair. Thank you for having us here, and thank you for your support of the fairs. We really appreciate it. Our former president, Euclid Farnham, used to always say, well, they always said it's just going to be a one-year program, and here it is, year after year after year. And we really appreciate it. We've actually come to depend on it. So I'll just tell you the last couple of years. In 2020 and 2021, we used the funds both years to combine with other money that we raised to tear down an old decrepit building and put in a brand new building on that same footprint. We're in a floodplain, so we're limited somewhat to what we can do. And so that building got dedicated this past summer. We're calling it Heritage Hall. We've been, we just celebrated our 150th fair, so we had a big celebration, and we
Has
dedicated.
there ever been a pause? It's 150.
Yeah, we had a pause during COVID,
Yeah.
and then we had pause during World War I, and then a flu epidemic. And during World War II, and yeah,
Is that the oldest one in Vermont?
I believe it's Caledonia.
Caledonia is the oldest.
Did Orleans just have Orleans
We
County?
did our 150 and 17.
I think Caledonia and Orphan.
Caledonia, I think
No.
we're tied, I think. We're both 1846, I think.
46, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's good to have that competition.
I think we're a smidge over, but
I think fairs have always been about competition, competing
Friendly.
with your neighbor to see who has the best butter or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what we did for 20 and 21, and then now we're using the money to do a big electrical upgrade. We're working with Green Mountain Power and Efficiency Vermont to make our fairgrounds more efficient, but also we need to bring a lot more power in. We need Green Mountain Power is bringing in some bigger transformers, and
Good.
it takes a lot of power. We have a lot of campground area with campers, electrical spots, and they never have enough power.
We did that a few years ago. Upgrade electrical takes a lot of power.
It doesn't, it seems like you just upgrade, and then, I can't tell you how many times we have used money upgrade, we're either burying lines. We took down this awful, ugly transformer system and buried all underground with money several years ago. And it's money well spent, but it's not like, oh, there's a new building, you can see the money. It's like,
Right.
no, you can't see it, but it's.
Stormwater's gonna be another big
Yeah.
issue.
And I want to talk,
Yeah.
I want to talk about that at some, well, I'm gonna let you go now.
Yeah, we're worried about the stormwater. We're right on the,
I want to ask you about all of you as far as what is the impervious surface rules bothering all of you? Because we're looking at like millions of dollars, if you go around to all of you. And how are you guys addressing that, or aren't you addressing that, or how's that affecting you?
well, we're just hearing about
Creation of
it.
impervious surface.
We're on the eastern side, so it hasn't hit us yet, but the first branch of the White River runs right through our property. And we know it's gonna affect us because Connecticut River watershed needs to be protected as well as Lake Champlain. But we haven't been hit as bad as the other side, and they will definitely talk to you about it.
Yep, go ahead.
Jackie Folsom. So there's two fairs here today that are affected by that. One of them is the Rutland Fair, and one of them is Champlain Valley. Addison is the other one that's affected by it.
Well, I can tell you that I just started today talking to some of my other senators, and I haven't brought it to this committee yet because it's just very, very fresh. But we're going to, and I actually had a few words with the governor about it today, very few words. I don't want to even imply that the governor's on board with anything, but I just kind of said something in his ear today when I had the moment. But we're going to be looking at that. And my whole thing is you can't exempt everybody. You certainly can't exempt the state because they've made the rules to do that. But I'm going to look to see what we can do to try to exempt the fairs from that rule. I think at one time we were talking to Champlain Valley Fair because of because Dick's on the board. You guys were talking of millions of dollars to rectify what they want, what they think needs to be corrected. That just seems counter. It just doesn't seem like that's what we ought to be doing. Seems like somebody ought to be able to wave a magic wand and bring some reasonableness to it. It's like Peggy had said, a lot of what you do, you don't see it. You just upgrade it and all that. But that right there is something that's not going to benefit. I can be careful how I say it, but it's not going to benefit you guys in any way, shape, or form. But it certainly makes everybody else feel better, right? And it's just $1 million that I think that could be better spent to stay within the fair structure and bring a better product to the people and help you guys attract more people to your events.
That'd be
So-
wonderful. One of the things
Yeah.
we talked about in Senate Ag was the fact that all of these fairs have an immense amount of green space that they're not
Yeah,
getting credited for.
Exactly.
So when you look at the amount of the impervious surface, we're not talking about Walmarts here. We're talking
Right.
about fairs with staggered buildings, some, walkways and driveways with gravel, but there's so much more empty space that is absorbing that water. And we certainly care about the water, but we also have the land to absorb the water on behalf of the rest of the state. So that's what we're going to be really delighted.
So we're gonna be working on a little bit of that. I don't know where it will go. It would be a tough road to go, but I think I can get enough senators interested in doing that to see if we can't make a difference with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Jason?
Thank you, Peggy.
Afternoon, I'm Jason Seacard with Orleans County Fair. And our grounds are on a kind of gravel bed. So we can absorb the water and we definitely can absorb the money.
So what are you doing? What's your projects? What do you do?
So last year we finished up with our safety improvements. We're moving the track away from the grandstand for the demolition derby. So now we have harness racing track that goes around in the normal pattern it always has. And then adjacent to it is a demo derby pit. So we moved the stage back and the pit back, and the visibility for the spectators is much better. You don't have to stand anymore in the grandstand to see the whole event. So everybody.
Carnival there, you have Carnival comes in.
We do. We have Smokies that comes in out of Maine. Jeanette, Gil, not the way It'll come in, but, yeah, that'll be their third year this year with us.
And you guys actually changed the date to not be in such huge competition with some of the other fairs, or it just worked better, or?
It was a move completely for obtaining a ride company.
Yeah.
That was why we had to do. So we went from about the third Wednesday before Labor Day to the first Wednesday after Labor Day, and to get the ride company. So we made it up with Lancaster, who uses the same company, or had been using the same company. I haven't checked with them this year to see if there's been a change with them. So we're contracted with them. A couple more years out. Our other improvement that we'll start on this year, we've got 2 capital grants in the bank to go forward with replacing barns 9, 10, and 11, which are the horse barns for the horse show area. We're gonna take those down and install a new barn right in that same area and build it in such a manner so that we can get winter storage out of it as well. So we can try to get some income out of it that way, as well as making improvement for the horse shows. Our horse programs have been very strong. We have 4 Jim Canna events on the grounds. Every time she's drawing 75 horses in. And that's, we usually bring in 4 people at least with each horse. A lot of young participants, which is great, because you need to see that youth coming in and enjoying and getting involved with that, so that we have growth, continued participation over the years.
Do all of you struggle with getting ride companies in, or I mean, do all of you bring in the carnivals in? Does everybody, all the fairs do, the rides and all that? It struggles the same? I mean, do you no conflicting dates or anything?
Tim has, I don't know what, you had a brochure or something you put together.
Yeah, Tim Shea, Champlain Valley Exposition. The ride industry is struggling, labor, transportation costs, and especially hitting hard small. That's not unique to Vermont at all. Vermont's being impacted. Smaller fairs, especially, just to haul those rides. For instance, we've changed our ride lineup quite a bit because a roller coaster takes 6 tractor trailers to get there and 12 people to set it up, and the math just doesn't work out. So now they replace that with smaller rides that 1 tractor trailer can haul, because it's just moving that stuff, the diesel fuel, labor, trucking fees. It's not unique to the carnival industry, but it's impacting a lot of fairs, again, throughout the country.
And we have to be on the route too, as you said.
Yeah,
They're not gonna come, this is our fair, they have to come.
Yeah, they're the driver as far as the dates.
Yeah, they'll tell you, yeah.
What else, Jace?
Yeah, economics are hitting all of us, personally or with the fairs. And we're seeing a 25% increase in our insurance costs. We saw an 18% increase in our electric bills. And we know what, fuel market and all those other factors are. There's a lot of pressure there when we're a business that's not running at a profit, and to have these new costs coming into play. Your support over the years, and hopefully it continues in the future, because we really need that seed to spark the sponsors and keep the volunteers excited, because there's something to get started. It gives us a direction.
Thank you.
Well, good, thanks. Yep.
Thank you.
Oh, that cleanup here, and just a Tim Shea, Champlain Valley Exposition, and have to recognize Senator Moss for his time and his contribution to our board.
Just this year, right?
Until he's done.
That's so much fun, this one now.
Oh, but I'll echo those before me, just to say thank you. The capital grants, they go a long way. The infrastructure that we all have, we thought over the past 3 years, we had a concentrated effort to improve our camping facilities. About 80 campsites on the grounds with water, sewer, or water and electric, some with sewer. But the requirements of 50 amp now versus 30, it was aging what we had. Again, a lot of these projects are not that fancy, not that glitzy, but you have to have them. We had a culvert this past December we had to replace at $100,000. And we were over, kind of pieced it together financially to make it happen. They're kind of working on paying it off now. But you can't pass that expense on to the fairgoer. People only pay so much to go to the fair. But without that road, we could not host the Vermont, we struggled to host the Vermont Farm Show, the fair, because it's just an access point to the grounds. And that's just one example of the roofs that we have that need to be repaired. And we slowly chip away at it. As Jackie said, we have a multi-year plan. But the capital grant funding is key to our ability to go with our matching funds, go to an excavator who can help us out, who has a love for the fair. If there weren't these local contractors with a soft spot in their heart for the fairs, a lot of us would struggle to do these significant projects. We had to do a fire alarm in the grandstand 3 years ago, required by the state, and we did it for obvious reasons, but it was a $40,000 project. Again, we use that 10 days out of the year, but without it, our fair would struggle. Getting back to the capital funding and the stipend funding, it goes a long way. 3 acre rule, we have 33 acres, that's $1.5 million to us to rectify it. And I made the point this morning that put the dollars aside, say you did have the money, which we don't, just the logistics of literally ripping the place apart. Burns, stormwater retention ponds, what events would we need to alter, possibly cancel, because it's a pretty significant task from an operational side, let alone the money.
Well, I brought it up with Senator Starr today. It's just something that's always kind of bothered me about it. And I think it has started last year, hearing that, and it kind of, again, I said, well, the fair people are here today. I want to bring that up. And I mentioned to Senator Starr, and I wanted to talk to this committee about it, but I guess we brought it front and foremost. But again, would like to, you can't exempt everybody, but I can't think of finer group of people that I could, that I say, hey, let's do that. I also want to thank all of you for, coming back after COVID. It would have been, a lot of times it'd be so easy just not to start back up again. You guys must be fools for punishment. We thank you for that. We really do. I mean, it's, it's hard. It really, really is. I mean, of course, Jason and I are great friends and in the same area, and I know how hard he's worked up there to Orleans County. I think the thing that infuriates me the most is sometimes the naysayers of what goes on within the public, and you start seeing the social media posts and all this and all that, and it's it's pretty frustrating at times because I know how hard you work. I know how hard what you guys do to bring in the pressures that you face to bring in a quality event. I applaud all of you.
Thank you.
For your time this afternoon too, we appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys for your time. You guys had a long day. Well, thank you for the gifts, and thank you for really not telling the truth about this guy.
Well, we do.
Safe travels.
Thank you for coming in.
We're gonna be the snow.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good
And
to
I'll
see
be
you,
back in
Robert.
my
Good to see
green
you.
jacket on Friday.
I thought you looked familiar.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That's
Oh,
very,
that's-
that thing really,
Yeah, I guess that's a good job.
Yeah, mine, when it rotates, it's like a distraction. We're seeing it, I mean, I'm sure.
I've looked at myself online. I think it really does get rid of one of my chins too.
Well, as it's a mix,